Today on my first kit, the Airfix Jet Provost. Hi there, I'm Gary, welcome to my channel. Now today we're making this kit of the Jet Provost by Airfix. The kit has got 45 pieces, makes a plane that's about 14 centimeters long and about 16 centimeters wide. Now if you enjoy the video, and I hope you do, please do remember, give it a thumbs up on the button below. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe, hit the bell, then you'll be notified of new videos as they arrive. In any case, for the moment, let's crack on and make this lovely hunting Percival Jet Provost from Airfix. As a starter set, the Jet Provost kit comes with paint, paintbrush and glue. It's rated at skill level 1, so it can be built by pretty much anyone. And it comes with a token for 1 flying hour. Now, as a member of the Airfix Club, you can collect these tokens towards a free kit, or you can donate them to Models for Heroes. A link to this charity is in the information box below. So that's all the background. Let's see what we get in the box. As usual, the first thing we look at are the plastic sprues containing the parts. There are 3 grey plastic sprues with 41 pieces, not all of which we're going to use. Plus, there's this bag with 4 transparent pieces that make up the canopy. Then there's another bag containing polystyrene cement and 4 water-based acrylic paints, red, black, grey and silver. There's a Humbrol No. 2 general purpose brush, which incidentally you can clean out in water. Inside the instruction is this sheet of decals, very nicely printed with good colours and crisp edges. And then there are the instructions themselves. After a few pages of multilingual warnings and suggestions, the actual drawn instructions, nicely drawn, very clear. Do look at them carefully before starting, as there are things like this need for a weight in the nose, but I'll talk about that later. You even get the option of an open or a closed cockpit. Then on the back of the box is the colour guide, and I will say this is one of the simpler ones around, essentially all over red with a bit of black and a bit of silver, but it does also tell you where all the decals need to go. So there we have it. I think it will make a nice kit, but let's see how we go about making it. First things first, and I'm going to give the bigger bits of the kit a wash in a gentle detergent solution. This will help the paint stick later on. You can also apply a coat of an acrylic spray primer if you like, but do make sure it's one designed for plastics, and also make sure it's a pale grey if you can. Pieces get cut from the sprues using side cutters or any small nippers like this. Any residual bits of sprue can be sanded away. I make my own sanding sticks, but you can buy them or indeed use something like a nail file. Really small pieces like this centre console are cut away using a sharp craft knife or a scalpel, and a pair of tweezers is very handy to help put things together, especially if you have clumsy chunky fingers like mine. With the console in place, you can add the control columns on either side. Next, I'm making the ejection seats. Each of these comes with a back made in 2 halves. You may have to trim some extra bits of plastic away, such as this, using your craft knife. And while there may be a bit too much on one part, another might be undermoulded. Now this isn't an issue with this piece, as the next thing I'm going to do is put a seat into the frame. Then there's this head box at the top. In real life this contains the parachute, and the seats are ready to fit into the cockpit. My next job is painting the instrument panel, so a quick word here. Make sure you stir these paints really well before use. A cocktail stick or a toothpick is ideal. The paints could have been lying around on the shelf for quite a while. That done, I'll paint the instrument panel with this interior grey colour. Don't use too much paint at once and go over the piece with the brush several times to make sure it sticks. When the paint's dry, you can attach a decal to it. Simply cut the decal from the sheet and soak in a dish of water for about 30 seconds or so. When it's ready, I use some tweezers to hold the backing paper and my paintbrush to ease the decal into place. Leave it to dry well, I'd say at least half an hour. While that's drying, I've painted the cockpit area black and I'm going to fit this front bulkhead. I'm also giving the handles of the joystick a spot of the grey interior paint to make them stand out. When all that's done, I can attach the instrument panel to the floor section. Then the whole cockpit section goes into the port side of the fuselage, which I've also painted black. It goes together quite well and it allows you then to set the angle of the instrument panel properly. Now the instructions say that if you want the plane sitting on its wheels, you need to add 2.5 grams of weight to the inside of the nose. Now if you're going to use something mouldable like modelling clay, Play-Doh, blue tack or something like that, then you can put it in now. Otherwise, wait till later. And with all that done, you can add the other half of the fuselage. Give the halves a good press together so all the alignment pegs go into their respective holes. I use clamps and bits of masking tape to hold the whole thing together while it dries. When it's ready, you can add the tailplane. It comes as one piece, which makes life quite a lot easier. The rudder sits into place nicely in the fin. And now for the engine exhaust, and this piece is what you get. It looks a bit ragged as there's a lot of flash or leaked mouldings on it, but it can be cleaned up quickly with a knife and some sandpaper. And when it's done, the exhaust just slots into place right at the tail. So next I'm going to build the wings. Now the instructions say to put the lower surface on the fuselage first, then add the upper surfaces. I find it easier to build the wings entirely first and then attach them to the fuselage. Press them firmly together to ensure a good bond. When they're dry, the whole assembly slots into place in the bottom of the fuselage. The rear end has a tab that you engage first and then just push the front into place. Now I find the wings to be a remarkably good fit to the fuselage. Next I'm painting the inside of the air intakes with that interior grey. Again, keep applying a brush over and over and the paint will stick. So with the fuselage built, I'm going to add my nose weights now. I use lead shot that comes in packs for divers to make their own weight belts, as this is a very cheap way of doing it. I've weighed out the right amount and I'm going to feed them into the nose section. When they're all in, I add a dollop of white PVA glue as this will set the shot in place. Then I can add the undercarriage doors. On this aircraft, only a tiny bit of the door remains open with the gear down, so it's very useful for containing the weights. And I'll leave all of that to set overnight. So next morning, in my case, I'm ready to complete the fuselage. I'm making sure the nose and sides are painted black, and while that's drying, I'll build the air inlets. The inner face slips between the intake and the fuselage, and then the outer section clips into place just so. Next is the canopy, and there are 4 parts on the transparent sprue. There's the windshield and the rear cover here. Then there are 2 canopy sections supplied. a smaller one for the closed canopy, and a slightly larger, wider one that you can fit slid back as an open canopy. To apply the canopy, I'd normally suggest white PVA glue like the one I've just used for the nose weights, but you might not have that hanging around, so I suggest using a bent paper clip or something similar to apply tiny dabs of glue to the aircraft, just 2 or 3, then push the windshield into place. The same goes for the other parts, just tiny dabs of glue. This helps prevent the fumes of the glue crazing the clear plastic. My closed canopy goes on next, followed by the rear panel, again with just a couple of dabs of glue. That will be plenty to hold all these pieces together. Once all those have dried, the fuselage is pretty much complete and I can start painting. The first thing I'm doing is painting the frame of the cockpit black. Now this is the colour that will show through on the inside when you look through the canopy. Then I'm starting to paint the all-over red. Now the red paint in my kit was a little thin, so it took several brushes to get the paint to break the surface of the plastic and start properly wetting it. But simply keep going over it. Don't use too much paint at once and it will stick quickly enough. Don't expect a perfect finish first time. You'll be adding more than one coat. You can also paint some of the accessory parts like the outside of the main undercarriage doors. Also, the wheels can be painted grey. When doing a second or third coat, try to use strokes in a different direction to the coat before it. This helps hide the brush strokes. Now I tried the red over the black I'd painted the frames and I found it way too thin, so I decided to paint the frames with the grey first, and this will give a good bright base for the red. Now you might find the number 2 brush a bit big for this and you might spill some paint, so what you can do when it's dry is gently trim it away with the sharp end of a cocktail stick. Just run it along the edge of the moulding and it will clean up the frame line nicely. You can then go over the grey with red and the result looks pretty good. And I can continue painting some more bits, such as the undercarriage legs in silver and the inside of the doors in interior grey. I've also painted the tyres black so I can put the wheels onto the undercarriage legs. Note there's a flat spot. That makes it look as if the tyre is bearing weight when the model's sitting. There are rectangular tabs on the leg that fit into rectangular holes on the wheel, so the flat spot sits exactly at the bottom. And I can also assemble the 2-part nose wheel at this point. The last big bit of paint is the anti-glare patch in black on the nose. Now just follow the panel line as a guide first of all and just curve around the nose. Then let all the paint dry. Again, preferably overnight, but at least an hour or so. The next thing I'm going to do is start the decals. Now just as with the instrument panel earlier, a pair of tweezers and the brush make them a lot easier to fit. While the first set of decals are drying, I'm going to take the time to paint the tailpipe in silver. You could mix in some of the black for the inside of the pipe if you like, to make it look a bit more sooty and used. And back to the decals, and there are large ones under the wings. Here the tweezers and brush are really useful. When the decals have set, I'll start adding the pre-assembled undercarriage. The bits just simply slot into place and they fit quite firmly. Also on the underside is this radio aerial that I'll paint black in a moment, and under the port wing is a pitot tube. This is red but it does need a bit of a touch up. With the gear dried, I can put the jet the right way up, attach this final aerial, again to be painted black, and then with the last piece, this jet Provost is complete. There it is then. I think it makes a really nice little model and I love that red colour. Now if you've enjoyed the show, please do remember, thumbs up on the like button below. Helps me enormously, and of course if you haven't yet done so, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and you'll get notified of all the new videos as they turn up. In any case, thanks so much for watching and I will see you very soon. Goodbye now.